I am joined in studio by two recovering politicians. First, let me say hello to former New York Republican Assemblyman, former candidate for Congress, Bob Strineri. Bob, it's great to see you.
This morning.
Yeah, we're hanging in there. Let me also welcome on the left, Democratic Congressman, radio talk show host, and podcaster, Anthony Weiner. Hello, Congressman.
Greetings and salutations.
You don't look too happy.
It's not a function of happy. I'm a little bit. I was done with this race about a month ago, so you can imagine where I am now that my candidate is lost. And the worst thing that can possibly happen to you as a talk show host, my predictions turned out to be wrong.
Well, the one prediction that you made that turned out to be accurate was the fact that you said that this race would be over by 2 a.m. at the latest, Eastern, and you were correct. How did you know? People were predicting this was going to go on for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. What made you so sure that this was going to be?
In a weird way, you know who we have to thank? We have Donald Trump to thank because of all of the lying about the election in 2020. Election laws changed. As a matter of fact, I think it was in North Carolina or Georgia, one of the states even said you've got to report all of the ballots within an hour. And I think everyone was kind of like really keen to get it done faster. And another thing that changed this year is that Republicans who traditionally embraced early voting and paper voting in 2016 and 2020, they didn't. And this year they did. So there's a lot more. About 50% of the total vote was already in the bag, so to speak, on election night. And I also thought those two early southern states would be indicative, and it turned out that they were, as Donald Trump won them both.
Georgia and North Carolina. Bob Strineri, your reaction to what we're seeing. You look pretty happy.
Absolutely. I guess 2 years ago, Anthony and I were here together, and the great red wave for the Republicans just didn't materialize. So it's nice to be back on a night when really we've seen Republican success all over the country. Not only is Donald Trump been elected once again president of the United States, but we've picked up a substantial number of seats in the United States Senate. It looks like we're holding our own in the Congress, and I think we will have a strong, united country with broad-based support for President to be Trump once again and his agenda. I think Kamala Harris made a number of mistakes. The first one was a selection of a vice president, and I think it was almost buffoonery to see this Elmer Fudd type character pretending that he had the skills, the background, experience, and ability to articulate positions for the vice presidency of the United States. I think that also her initial charm, which gave a lot of enthusiasm to Democrats to come back to the party. Maybe they were thinking of sitting it out after the debate performance between Trump and Biden that caused the coup to take place to effectively remove him from the political scene. It's interesting. I don't know who's been the president for the last 3 or 4 months, but I think that was a mistake. Her charm, her smiles, her waving initially were appealing, but I think as time went on and as we were moving towards Election Day, people were demanding to know what she really stood for. What was her position on the economy, on crime, on schools, on the border? And it was absent.
Anthony, right after the debate, we spoke, and I thought it was likely that the Democrats were going to jettison Biden. You said you didn't think that it was going to happen. Do you think if Biden had stayed on the ticket, obviously we don't know what the ensuing 3 or 4 months of campaigning after that would have looked like, but if Biden had stayed on the ticket, do you think he would have done the same as Harris, better or worse? How do you think that would have done?
I don't know. Look, the country, I don't know what country Rob is looking at. Half the country voted against Trump, half the country voted for him. It's 2020, 2016. Again, I think we've got to understand that for all of the, here's what happens in winning races and losing races. Winning races get exaggerated for the things they did, and losing races get overly criticized for the things that they did or didn't do. We are basically in a dynamic now that every 4 years, the American people want change. We used to go through that cycle once every 30 or 40 years. Now it's seemingly every election. And all it takes is 2 or 3% to move, and that's all that happened. What happened, it looks like, when you look at this map, this is 2016. This might be what happens when a woman runs, for all we know. That this is basically as many votes as you get. This might be the glass ceiling that exists. She underperformed Biden in 2020. But Biden, I don't think was fit to be was fit to be a candidate. He's an excellent president, but I don't think he was fit to be a candidate. But honestly, Frank, who cares? He did not run. Harris did, and here we are.
All right. In just a moment, we are going to, President Trump is walking to the stage. We're going to take his remarks as soon as he begins addressing his supporters. But Anthony, you mentioned 2 or 3% and how that could be all the difference in the world at times. It's being reported that Trump saw a 2% increase in Jewish support in Pennsylvania, according to the Fox News exit poll. Assuming that holds true across the country, that he did have a little bit of an uptick in Jewish support. Think carefully about your answer. I'm going to ask you why that's the case. Here is the 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. He is approaching the podium. There's some Lee Greenwood playing in the background.
Isn't he going to sway for 39 minutes while they play his music?
Well, don't worry. We're going to turn Anthony's mic off while President Trump addresses the public.
This wasn't expected, but I just
all right. We are keeping an eye on President Trump's speech, which is less of a victory speech, and he's now kind of turning it over to various people up there on the stage. We're going to keep an eye on this, but check in again with our in-studio panel, former Democratic Congressman Anthony Weiner, former Republican Assemblyman Bob Straneri. Anthony, I know you're not a Trump fan, to put it mildly. What do you think of what we're seeing in terms of the speech, seeing and hearing?
It's a huge missed opportunity. This is one of those speeches that historians go back and look at, victory speeches and unifying themes and looking ahead, bringing the country together. And he's doing his normal rambling on and wandering off on tangents and things. I mean, look, if this is what we're going to see for 4 years, man, this is going to be the house of pain. But he's missing an opportunity. They probably wrote a very nice speech for him. It's in the teleprompter, and maybe he'll get to reading it.
I must have heard a different speech because I thought this was a wonderful delivery. It was calmly presented, recognized the historic importance of this night, what a tremendous victory this is now for the people of this country. It is a speech that I hope will bring everybody together. I think the margins of victory are strong enough that we don't have to fear that there will be litigation and challenges and lawsuits to try to set aside what is an overwhelming victory.
Insurrections? You're going to do an insurrection this year?
We have long coattails tonight, which has produced almost a record number of United States senators who will sit on the Republican side of the aisle and give support to the agenda that President Trump has outlined. He will initiate very quickly. And hopefully we're going to have a Republican House of Representatives, so we won't have the nonsense of impeachments and investigations and other kinds of challenges that will ill-serve the people of this country. So let's come together. Let's celebrate the democracy of this country, and that we as American citizens can make our choices. And even those who did not support our choices, I hope will see that this is what democracy really is all about, and will be a stronger country for this.
Anthony?
Well, that's refreshing. Welcome aboard to all my Republican brothers and sisters who spent 4 years denying elections, lying about it, undermining the credibility of the system, and the 1,500 people that went to prison for participating in the insurrection on January 6th. It looks like the guy who led the insurrection won't be going to prison. I'm pretty sure he won't be having that investigation now that he's in charge of the Justice Department. So it's fascinating. 1,500 of his followers went to prison. Ashley Babbitt's dead, and he's now going to get rewarded for it. But all of that being said, let me just say one thing about what Rob just said. It would be great if we knew what these policies were. The only one that he articulated in any kind of detail was a 200 or 300% national sales tax in the form of a tariff. He didn't tell us how he's going to round up people. I guess he's going to have Gestapo tactics on the streets and that kind of stuff. But now he has to put some meat on the bones. Fortunately, we saw in the first time he was in the White House, he had no idea how to legislate anything. So maybe the country will be safe for this 4 years.
Anthony, speaking of being a gracious winner or loser, do you think we're going to hear a concession
Why are you
speech?
looking at me when you say that?
Do you think we're going to
Clearly
hear?
I'm not.
Do you think we're going to hear a concession speech from Vice President Harris tonight?
It doesn't seem likely. Before they called the election, her campaign chair went out on stage and said, we're going to give a speech in the morning after the 3 blue wall states come in, and they sent everyone home. So I think we're in this weird moment that she doesn't have a room to. The answer is no, I don't think so. Probably in the morning. I'm sure she's she's trying to get Donald Trump on the phone right now to concede.
Well, if we're looking at CNN, it doesn't show that the president-to-be Trump has the 270 electoral votes. They just don't want to give in.
Different states. Listen,
there.
none of those votes are fully counted. These are projections, and projections happen. I mean, it does seem like he won. He's on stage rambling on about something.
All right, Bob Straneri, I was asking Anthony before about the Jewish vote, which apparently he was much stronger in. No, at least slightly stronger, 2 to 3% in Pennsylvania, where their exit polls show in a pivotal state they went with him. Do you attribute that to what's happening in the Middle East? Do you attribute that to some other factor?
I think and
I know you're Jewish as well.
The unwillingness of the Biden-Harris administration to truly support the right of Israel to defend themselves, to free our hostages, to eradicate Hamas and Hezbollah and make the Middle East safe, and to see that what was begun with the Abraham Accords will now, I think, have the opportunity to be fulfilled. And interestingly enough, I think the other Arab nations, other than Iraq and Iran, are supportive of bringing peace to the Middle East, and a sense of unity will follow. I think the Jewish vote did move to a degree to President Trump this time, and I think concern over Israel was a major factor in this happening.
Anthony Weiner, I know you're a strong supporter of Israel. You were in public life, and now that you're a media commentator, you still are. You think that played a role in any increase in the Jewish vote here?
Might have done. I mean, the irony is Kamala Harris might have lost Kamala Harris might have lost Michigan for being too strongly pro-Israel. Mm-hmm. So, look, I think as a policy matter that Biden and Harris have been partners, have had the United States cheek to jowl in a policy as close to Israel as it's ever been. It led to the death of Sinwar, it led to the death of Nasrallah. And I think it is the Republicans who have made Israel a partisan issue. I don't believe that it is. Joe Biden has been in public life for the longest time. I can tell you from personal experience, is no stronger advocate for Israel. And everything that Israel asked from the United States, they got. And you might not like Bibi Netanyahu, and Biden might not get along with him very well, but everything they've asked for, they've gotten, and it's helped them to defend themselves against the axis of evil that they confront.
Do you give any understanding you're a Trump critic, do you give any credit to Trump as a campaigner? He has run an unorthodox campaign. Right now, speaking at this victory speech, is the president of the UFC, Dana White. It's difficult to imagine that in an Obama or Bush victory speech. Do you give credit to Trump for being able...
Credit is a word. I mean, being a demagogue on immigration is the easiest thing in the world. When Mr. Straneri was in politics, when I was in politics, beating up on the other, particularly when it comes to immigrants, is a tradition in our country. We've never had a presidential candidate lean into it as much as Trump has. Was it successful? Yes. Does that make him a good campaigner? Being a demagogue, making up stuff. Like the number one issue in exit polls was the economy. So the American people chose someone to bring down inflation when it's at 1.9% right now. Well, good luck with that, guys. Look, he won, right? And so
nobody can blame the Weiner laptop for this point.
Well, exactly. Whatever happened here, he did it. And I think ultimately what it came down to, this was a change election, and he just barely looked more changey than an African American and South Asian woman vice president.
Bob, I think you first started working in presidential politics back in 1976 with Gerald Ford, if memory serves, or 1980.
Even earlier than that, when I was a young Republican president in 1960, I actually began working on Richard Nixon's first campaign.
I stand corrected. So it's clear that Trump has an unorthodox campaign strategy compared to all of the other Republican presidents that you've worked on behalf of. Do you think he's sort of changed the rules of presidential campaigning? 4 years from now, are we going to see candidates act more like Trump, or is this something that's uniquely Trumpian?
I think that this is something unique to Donald Trump's style. I think it's a reaction to the opponents that he has faced. Clearly, he had a message that resonated with the American people as he identified the issues that they're concerned with. Kamala gave us a smile and a wave, but nothing else. She wouldn't even say how she voted on the California proposition earlier this week that the people of California had, which addressed criminal issues and crime in California that's very important to them. I think Donald Trump ran a masterful campaign. He changed his tone. He changed his moderation, and he seemed presidential. He seemed like somebody who did have a plan, who does have ideas that Americans can understand. He speaks plain language, and he demonstrates common sense.
All right, we're going to continue in a moment with Bob Strinari and Anthony Weiner. Before we go to break, let's hear another minute of President Trump's victory speech.
Nobody has what we have. But we have the greatest people also. Maybe that's the most important thing. This campaign has been so historic in so many ways. We've built the biggest, the broadest, the most unified coalition. They've never seen anything like it in all of American history. They've never seen it. Young and old, men and women, rural and urban. And we had them all helping us tonight, when you think. I mean, I was looking at it. I was watching it. They had some great analysis of the people that voted for us. Nobody's ever seen anything like that. They came from all corners, union, non-union, African American, Hispanic American, Asian American, Arab American, Muslim American. We had everybody, and it was beautiful. It was a historic realignment, uniting citizens of all backgrounds around a common core of common sense. You know, we're the party of common sense. We want to have borders. We want to have security. We want to have things be good, safe. We want great education. We want a strong and powerful military, and ideally we don't have to use it. You know, we had no wars. 4 years we had no wars, except we defeated ISIS. We defeated ISIS in record time. But we had no wars.
We'll hear more
They
from
said,
President
"He will
Trump
start a
along
war."
with
I'm
our
not gonna
star-studded
start
panel straight ahead.
The Other Side of Midnight.
Attention equipment buyers. Purple Wave Auction is transforming how you find and purchase machinery. Say goodbye to limited local options and hello to a nationwide marketplace at your fingertips. Browse a vast selection of ag and construction equipment from the comfort of your home or office. Our no-reserve online auctions mean every bid could be a win. From search to delivery, we're with you every step of the way. Register for free at purplewave.com.
The U.S. is the biggest consumer of human trafficking, while Latina women are the most exploited. Kamala and Biden have been the exploiters in chief by not protecting the border, nor women and children. Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me." God has intervened by placing his hand on Donald Trump to protect them from exploitation. And God intervened by inspiring Bob Unanue to say,
"We're all truly blessed to have a leader like President Trump."
Read about this and more in Bob's new best-selling book, Blessed, Donald J. Trump and the Spiritual War, available now on Amazon.
If you talk and they will hear you.
We all want our kids to grow up safe and healthy, so we show them how. And we tell them with honest conversations that let them know what we expect. Not just one time, but every chance we get. That's especially important when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. Kids not only need to know the dangers and how to avoid them, they need to hear it often from you. And when it comes to pain medications, opioids, they need to know that they should never be taken without a prescription and never shared with friends or family. It's dangerous and illegal. So talk with your kids and guide them through the challenges of growing up safe and healthy. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
So talk, they hear you. You can do it if you try.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
Well, I'm gonna write a little letter, I'm gonna mail it to my local DJ. Yeah, it's a jumping little record I want my jockey to play. Roll over Beethoven, I gotta hear it again today. You know my temperature rising, the jukebox blowing.
8 minutes until the top of the hour. This is The Other Side of Midnight. President Trump has been elected as the 47th president of the United States. I believe he has just concluded his victory speech, which went on for about 35, 40 minutes, included a number of guest speakers, J.D. Vance, Dana White, and several others. I'm joined in studio by Democrat Anthony Weiner and Republican Bob Strineri. Bob, let me ask you, I know you're excited as a Republican that obviously Trump won the presidency, the Republicans won the Senate, and as you heard Trump there, it seems like they're in a good position to win the House as well. A lot of people get concerned, irrespective of where they fall on the political spectrum, about one-party government. Is that something that people should be concerned about?
It's not really one-party government because in the House of Representatives, there are very diverse people from different districts in different states that have different positions, as we saw in the Republican conference over the last 2 years, where there was a challenge to Speaker Kevin McCarthy, and he was removed, and then there was further deterioration in support that made it impossible to move some of the legislation that a lot of Republicans wanted. I think the country would benefit at this point in time with a united government so that the Trump agenda will not be stalled and will be able to go forward. And the tax cuts which we want in place, which will be an extension of the existing Trump tax cuts from 2017, that will also be improved and further reduce taxation on working men and women. I think that's going to be a high priority. I think having united government means we will be able to address the issues of the border. We will be able to address issues of education, and we will be able to certainly be effective, I believe, in foreign policy. Under Donald Trump, we were not at war. He used economic power instead of military power to advance the best interests of this country and really peace and freedom throughout the world.
Anthony, as someone that served in both the majority and the minority when you were in Congress, what do you think for 2 years at least of one-party Republican rule is going to look like coming out of Washington?
Well, it's not clear. I mean, the 30-year bond is in free fall right now because of concerns about deficits, concerns about the proposals for national sales tax. So, like, the markets are nervous about running up more debt. Look, as if my general bias is towards the British parliamentary system, that you let one party do their thing and then you have a vote on it. Now, voters don't seem to be in that mood. Voters frequently split their ballots. It looks like the House may actually be Democrat here. And if I was in the Democratic, in the legislature, in the Democratic, in the Congress, I would be fighting like heck to stop it, Trump. But I'm tripping all over my tongue because I've been on a microphone for like 9 hours straight. But let's remember something. Donald Trump in 2017 and 2018 had a unified government and couldn't legislate his way out of a paper bag. He got the tax cut done, but famously sat at his desk.
The First Step Act.
Yes, the First Step Act, which is essentially a bunch of Democratic ideas, but yes,
right,
First Step Act. But in terms of immigration, he sat down in the Oval Office and looked into the camera and said, "I need to pass a reform to the immigration laws, which we still need to do today," and he wasn't able to do it because it's not his thing. Generally speaking, I don't like his policies. Okay, I mean some of them are okay, but most of them I don't like, so I don't want it to be successful. But I do think now he is the president. Let's see what he proposes. I generally think that his campaign was absent real ideas. It didn't have a lot. We took tariffs, which is basically a national sales tax.
You keep saying that, but I think that's an unfair characterization because tariffs is something that have existed throughout American history, and prior to 1916, they were the primary method of funding the government. Whereas a national sales tax, people understand a sales tax as something that you pay at the retail level that's collected by the states when you go and purchase something. They add an 8% thing on there. There's a variety of ways that people pay the tariff. Sometimes the exporter eats the cost of the tariff because they still want access to the markets that they're going to.
Not an across the board one. No. Across the board one is indeed a national sale. You can call it. As a matter of fact, Steve Moore in our own airwaves said, listen, that's what it is. It's a tax. And Republicans always argued that tariffs were tax. Now, there are lots of times where I think you should use tariffs. President
Biden certainly has.
I don't have a problem with that. this idea of across the board is definitionally, so when you do anything across the board, there are a lot of products we don't even make here. So the idea of adding a 20% VIG to it just adds a 20% increase to the cost, if not more. And even the products that we make here, what do you think a United States manufacturer of a microphone does when the Chinese have to pay $20 more? He raises his price $19. It's inflationary. Every economics student knows that. And by the way, we were in wars under Trump. We were in Afghanistan because he promised to get us out, and he didn't.
Well, I think, well, I don't want to speak for Bob, but you can respond. I think you meant he didn't start any new wars, right?
He didn't start any war. We did not engage in any military disputes with anybody. He used economic power to advance the interests of this country.
We were in Afghanistan.
And he did it. We were in Afghanistan for 20 years before Donald Trump ever took office. And he did have
Joe
a plan.
Biden got us out.
Excuse me. And he did have a plan to get us out. As far as tariffs are concerned, this is more of a threat than necessarily being imposed in order to try to bring manufacturing and jobs back to America and see that products we need are made here. You know, we have too many products like pharmaceuticals being made in China. We should not be held hostage to other countries on products we need for Americans.
I don't think you're winning a convert out of Anthony Weiner. Bob Schneider and Anthony Weiner, thank you both. We'll continue a whole lot more election post-analysis in a moment. Your influence counts. Be sure to use it.